Hi guys, I'm back and it's been a while since I've done a Faith Chronicles video. Why has it taken me so long to continue to tell this beautiful story? I don't know, but I'm back on track now and I believe this is number 9, and actually I guess I'll call it the name of the story that I'm going to actually tell you today. I can't remember what I was going to call it, but today I'm going to share with you a story, what we call mission stories, because they're from areas outside of where we worship. So say I'm in Korea, my mission stories could come to me, yes, from Korea, but they can come from Africa, they can come from the US, they can come from other places. And so our mission story for the first part of this year, it was actually the mission stories from January to March. And mission stories in essence are just stories of people's lives where God would have worked in their lives, them sharing their experience with us, kind of like how I'm sharing my experience with you. And so this is the book right here, and it's Youth and Adult Magazine, Adventist Mission, and it was 2012, the first quarter, and it was from Northern Asia Pacific Division. So this mission story, all of them are from persons who live in Northern Asia. The reason I'm sharing this story is because a day while I was going through my circumstance, the last thing I spoke about in the Faith Chronicles had to do with prayer and how God wants us to pray with certain things in mind, things like letting it be for His glory, things like being perseverant, things like praying in faith. But subsequent to this, at our church service, because we usually try to read a mission story every Sabbath at church, subsequent to that week, we had this mission story entitled Finding the God of Hope. So Finding the God of Hope, and it was about this young man here, and he was basically telling his story, and I'm going to show you how beautiful it was that his story at this right time in my circumstance, his story was the mission story for that time, because my exam was supposed to be in March, and this here is from March 3rd. I hope you saw and I didn't blur it, but you see, March 3rd, my exam is in March, and God sent out this mission story for March 3rd. And it's entitled, as I said, Finding the God of Hope. And it's about, I think this is his name, Fee or Fi. But yeah, that's his name. And this is him relating his story. Watch it. Mother sat with her head in her hands, weeping. Dark circles under her eyes. And if you hear noise, it's raining outside. So, dark circles under her eyes spoke of sleepless nights. Her small business in northern China had gone bankrupt, and she couldn't pay her debt. I knew we were in trouble. Our neighbor saw my mother's sadness, too, and offered mother words of comfort and hope. Then she invited my mother to attend her church. When my mother told me that she was going to attend a Christian church, I wasn't sure what to think, he said. I knew nothing about church or God or faith, but the glimmer of hope in her eyes told me that this was important to her, so I went to church with her. Soon my mother's shoulders, which had been bent in despair, straightened with hope and faith in God. 2 years later, I decided to follow God, the God of hope, just as my mother had. Now, he said in China, special programs and exam preparation classes are often held on Sabbath. My exam was on Sabbath, so this story is getting interesting. He said God began to convict me that I must honor His commandments. It wasn't an easy decision, for my classmates and teachers wouldn't understand why I was not in school 1 day a week. With much prayer, I explained my faith to my teacher and asked for permission to miss classes on Saturday. The teacher thought long and hard and then told me I could miss the classes as long as long as I kept my grades up. I was thrilled. I knew God was working on my behalf. Other teachers, however, tried to pressure me to take the extra classes. They warned me that if I didn't do well on my government exams, it would make the school and teachers look bad. But God blessed, and my grades actually improved after I started honoring God's Sabbath. There were times when I felt the pressure to attend classes on Sabbath, but through it all, my mother encouraged me to be faithful. She asked the church members to pray that I would be faithful to my commitments to God and that God would bless me. The church pastor and many members stood beside me, encouraging me and strengthening my faith. I told you about how they prayed for me. I think, hopefully I put that one up, I'm not sure, but when I was listening to the sermon, Hope for the Valley Christian, and how the pastor was preaching to me specifically at some points in time, and then how after that service that people in my church were praying for me and they were lifting me up before God, and the same thing is happening with this young man. This young man is me in China, just I'm not in China. No, his story continues.